I'd like to call the Monday, April 1st, 2019 Oakwood City Council meeting to order. Would you please rise and join with the pledge to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a roll call, please, Lori?
Mayor Duncan?
Here.
Vice Mayor Byington?
Here.
Mr. Stevens?
Here.
Mrs. Hilton?
Here.
Mr. Epley?
Here.
And may I have a report on the minutes of our March 4 regular session and work session? Councilmember Hilton.
Yes, Your Honor. I've reviewed the minutes from both meetings and I found them to be correct and complete, and therefore I move that they be adopted as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, so ordered. Under status reports, we still have a couple of vacancies on our property maintenance board. We have no appointments to give to you tonight, but we hope to have those filled by our next meeting on May 6th. I also have several proclamations I'd like to read into the record. Whereas April 11, 2019 marks the 51st anniversary of the passage of the U.S. Fair Housing Law, Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 as amended, which enunciated a national policy of fair housing without regard to race, color, religion, national origin, sex, family status, or disability, and encourages fair housing opportunities for all citizens. And whereas the principle of fair housing is not only law, but a basic human necessity and an inalienable right inscribed in the Constitution of the State of Ohio as adopted in 1851. Whereas the Miami Valley Fair Housing Center, Incorporated, is engaged in passionately pursuing its mission to eliminate housing discrimination in the Miami Valley, and whereas the Miami Valley Fair Housing Center and the Dayton Realtors are committed to continuing to address housing discrimination in the Miami Valley. Whereas April is traditionally designated as Fair Housing Month by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and the theme this year is Fair Housing, Understanding the Past to Define a Better Tomorrow, in order to highlight the Fair Housing Law, Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 as amended. Now therefore, under the power vested in me, I, William D. Duncan, Mayor of the City of Oakwood, in commemoration of the 51st anniversary of the passage of the Fair Housing Act, do hereby urge all citizens to understand and exercise their right to equal housing opportunity and proclaim the month of April 2019 as Fair Housing Month. Thank you. And my next proclamation, whereas autism affects an estimated 1 in 59 children, 1 in 37 boys, and 1 in 151 girls, and is a complex disorder that affects each person differently, resulting in unique strengths and challenges. Whereas autism can cause challenges with verbal and nonverbal communication, social interaction, and repetitive behaviors, and can affect anyone, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, or socioeconomic background. Whereas autism is also accompanied by medical conditions that impact quality of life, and whereas a comprehensive, collaborative approach will help to advance research, providing a better understanding of the many forms of autism, while strengthening advocacy efforts and ensuring access to services and resources throughout the lifespan. And whereas early diagnosis and intervention tailored to individual needs can have lifelong benefits, easing the transition to adulthood and fostering greater independence. And whereas each person and family affected by autism should have access to reliable information, supports, and opportunities to live up to their greatest potential. Whereas the City of Oakwood takes part in the annual observance of World Autism Month and World Autism Awareness Day to address the diverse needs of individuals and families affected by autism. Now therefore, under the power vested in me, I, William D. Duncan, Mayor of the City of Oakwood, hereby proclaim April 2019 as World Autism Month and April 2nd, 2019 as World Autism Awareness Day in the city of Oakwood to increase understanding and acceptance of people with autism spectrum disorder. I have a third proclamation. And this is a good one. Whereas today's libraries are not just about books, but what they do with and for people. Whereas libraries of all types are at the heart of cities, towns, schools, and campuses, and whereas libraries have long served as trusted and treasured institutions where people of all backgrounds can be together and connect. Whereas libraries and librarians build strong communities through transformative services, programs, and expertise. And whereas libraries, which promote the free exchange of information and ideas for all, were cornerstones of democracy. Whereas libraries promote civic engagement by keeping people informed and aware of community events and issues. And whereas librarians and library workers partner with other civic organizations to make sure their community's needs are being met. And whereas libraries and librarians empower their communities to make informed decisions by providing free access to information. Whereas libraries are a resource for all members of the community, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status, by offering services and educational resources that transform lives and strengthen communities. Whereas 2019 marks the 80th anniversary of Wright Memorial Library. Whereas Wright Memorial Library provides diverse opportunities for lifelong learning, enjoyment, education, and personal growth. Whereas Wright Memorial Library is a community focal point that encourages learning and intellectual growth from the earliest ages. And whereas Wright Memorial Library enriches minds and transforms lives. Whereas libraries, librarians, library workers, and supporters across America are celebrating National Library Week. Now therefore, under the power vested in me, I, William D. Duncan, Mayor of the City of Oakwood, hereby proclaim April 7 through April 13, 2019 as National Library Week and encourage all residents to visit Wright Memorial Library this week and explore what's new at your library and engage with your librarian. Thank you. And I have a copy of this proclamation that I would like to deliver. I know we have a couple of guests out there. I believe Joe Fulford is here, who's on the Library Board of Trustees, and also Jackie Taylor is here. If you'd like to come up to the podium, I'll present this to you.
May I present to you Raymond? He's one of our library ambassadors.
Hi, Raymond. Nice to meet you, too. Over here.
Sure.
Great. Would you like to say anything?
Jim has a few words prepared.
Okay.
Thank you very
All right.
much.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. As you know, it's the library's 80th anniversary, and we have a challenge this year. It's our anniversary book challenge. If you read 8 books before the end of the year, you can earn a beautiful Wright Library coffee mug for a loved one just about Christmas time. So I've got a few of these. I'll leave with Lori. I encourage you to come out and visit the library. And I also want just to make sure that you understand that it's only been 3 years that we've had library ambassadors with the library. So we have one from each grade, from each school, and they act as our liaisons to their classes. So I'm very proud of that. It's working out real well, right, Raymond? Yes, and it's what makes Oakwood a neat place to live. So thank you very much for the proclamation, and appreciate your time.
You're quite welcome. What grade are you in?
Fourth.
Fourth grade? You go to Smith or Harmon?
Harmon.
Harmon? Well, congratulations on being an ambassador.
Thank you.
Okay.
Keep up the good work.
It means that he was the highest reading Harmon child for 4th grade.
Oh.
How many books did you read?
What do you mean?
How many books did you read?
Over the summer?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
More than
Something
Rob.
over 20.
I believe you read for over 200 hours.
Oh my gosh, so we
Yes.
keep track of it by hours
We-
now, okay.
You've got to keep those minds going. So long books or short books, Raymond was one of our highest readers for all of Oakwood for the whole summer. Quite proud of him.
Well, that's
Great.
great. Congratulations, Raymond. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And I have yet another proclamation. Whereas safety is the highest priority for the streets and highways in Oakwood and throughout Ohio. Whereas motorcycle riding is a popular form of transportation and recreation for over 200,000 people across Ohio and millions across the nation. Whereas in an effort to make motorcycling in Ohio a safer and more enjoyable sport, motorcycling organizations from around the state are planning a collective venture to promote motorcycle awareness. And whereas all motorcycle organizations, clubs, dealerships, groups, and highway safety officials in our state are encouraged to join Abate of Ohio, Inc. and the Motorcycle Ohio program in actively promoting safe operation, increased rider training, improved licensing efforts, and motorist awareness. Whereas during the month of May, all roadway users should unite in the safe sharing of the roadways throughout Ohio. Now therefore be it resolved that I, William D. Duncan, Mayor of the City of Oakwood, do hereby urge all members of our community to join in the quest to make Ohio safe for motorcycle riders and all motorists, and proclaim the month of May 2019 as Motorcycle Awareness Month. Thank you. And then finally, we received this just in the mail today from State Representative Jim Butler, an Oakwood resident who represents our district, this giant commendation. And the print is so small that I'm going to have to put my glasses on. Again, on behalf of the members of the House of Representatives of the 133rd General Assembly of Ohio, we are pleased to commend the City of Oakwood on being ranked first on the list of best places to live by the Dayton Business Journal. Throughout its history, the City of Oakwood has been known for its residents' friendliness and willingness to work hard, and has enjoyed the benefits of an innovative and civic-minded population that has established a tradition of industrialness for all to emulate. Those who today make Oakwood their home and still uphold these exemplary values, and they can take great pride in their community. The progressive ideas and willingness of its citizens to work together for common goals have gained the City of Oakwood the reputation of an amiable and pleasant community. Its residents can be proud of this distinction, for it affords them the opportunity to reflect on the accomplishments of the past and to look forward to a future filled with hope and promise. Thus, with sincere pleasure, we commend the City of Oakwood on its recent accolade and salute its citizens as fine Ohioans. Thank you very much, and I'll give this back to you. And that concludes our status reports. The next item on our agenda is the visitors portion of the meeting. If anyone has any issues they would like to address council on, this would be your time to come down to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And I see we have maybe a Boy Scout in the group tonight. Do you have any issues you need to address the city with? You're sure? Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Seeing no more visitors, we will conclude that, and then we will go to legislation. And Councilmember Stevens has an ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor Duncan. This is an ordinance to levy special assessments for the construction or reconstruction of sidewalks and appurtenances thereto in the City of Oakwood, Ohio. This ordinance is the third piece of legislation for last year's sidewalk project authorizing assessment of the sidewalk repair costs that have not already been paid directly by affected homeowners. This is the second reading of this ordinance, so I move the council adopt it this evening.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions for Councilmember Stevens? Hearing none, Lori, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Duncan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton?
Yes.
Mr. Epley?
Yes.
And Councilmember Stevens has another ordinance he would like to talk about.
An ordinance determining to proceed with the repairing of sidewalks and appurtenances thereto on Ford Boulevard and certain other streets between certain termini in the city of Oakwood, Ohio, providing that abutting property owners repair the same. This is an annual ordinance that is the second step of our 2019 sidewalk project. It was introduced with a first reading at the March 4th, 2019 council meeting. This year's program will cover all streets within the area bounded by Ford Boulevard, Far Hills Avenue, Patterson Road, Acorn Drive, and Schroyer Road. This is also a second reading of this ordinance, so I move that council adopt it tonight.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments for Councilmember Stevens? Hearing none, Lori, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Duncan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton?
Yes.
Mr. Epley?
Yes.
And I believe Councilmember Stevens has a third ordinance.
An ordinance determining to proceed with the improvement of certain streets between certain termini in the city of Oakwood by lighting the same with electricity. This is an annual ordinance that is the second step of our 2020 street lighting program. It was introduced with a first reading at the March 4th, 2019 council meeting, and it is the ordinance that authorizes the city to proceed with the project. This is the second reading of this ordinance, so I move the council adopt it this evening.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments for Councilmember Stevens? Hearing none, Lori, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Duncan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton?
Yes.
Mr. Epley?
Yes.
And I believe Vice Mayor Byington now has an ordinance.
No, I think he has.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I miss one?
No. My fourth and final.
I am sorry, I misspoke.
I know. That's all right. An ordinance levying special assessments for the improvement of certain streets between certain termini in the city of Oakwood, Ohio by lighting the same with electricity. This ordinance is the third step of our 2020 street lighting program. It allows for the costs of street lighting to be certified to the Montgomery County Auditor for assessment. This is the first reading of this ordinance, so I make no motion at this time.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Byington, you have an ordinance?
Yes, and it does not include the word termini. This is an ordinance amending section 729.03, permits required of the Oakwood Business Regulation Code to clarify permitting procedures for the operation of mobile food vehicles at regularly recurring events. This ordinance was introduced with a first reading at the March 4th, 2019 council meeting and is intended to make the food truck permitting process more efficient for recurring weekly or monthly events like the farmers market. It would revise section 729.03 to include a category for regularly recurring events and would combine each instance of these regularly recurring events within the same calendar year as a single event for permitting process or purposes. This will enable the event sponsor to collect and submit permit applications early in the season, which the city can then review and generate a list of approved vendors. This is a second reading of this particular ordinance, so I would move the council adopt it this evening.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions for Vice Mayor Byington? Hearing none, Lori, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Duncan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton?
Yes.
Mr. Epley?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Byington has another ordinance.
Yes, this is an ordinance adopting the 2020 tax budget for the city of Oakwood, Ohio, for the fiscal year beginning January 2020. To comply with section 6.01 of the city charter, this is our annual housekeeping ordinance to estimate the city's revenues and expenses for the calendar year of 2020. This is the first reading of this particular ordinance, so I make no motion at this time.
Thank you. And I believe you have one more ordinance.
Yes, this is an ordinance to repeal the existing Title 12 signs of the Oakwood zoning ordinance and to adopt a new Title 12 signs of the Oakwood zoning ordinance. This is an ordinance to update the city's sign regulations, which have been materially updated, which have not been materially updated since the current zoning ordinance took effect on January 1st, 2001. The draft ordinance was prepared by the city attorney to accomplish three goals. Number 1 is to establish clear regulations for the use of electronic signage. Number 2, to ensure effective administration while remaining constitutional. And 3, to add clarity and consistency throughout the sign code. This is a text amendment to the zoning ordinance, so it is subject to a 2-step approval process that requires public hearings before the Planning Commission and the City Council. The Planning Commission conducted its public hearing on March 6th. By a vote of 3 to 2, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the ordinance, but conditioned that recommendation on the removal of certain provisions from the draft. Those provisions included Section 1201.06C5, which permits electronic changeable copy to be used on certain monument signs. Section 1201.06D, which sets forth regulations applicable to monument signs displaying electronic changeable copy, and Section 1201.06F2, which requires all permanent signs to be constructed of non-combustible materials. I am introducing this ordinance with a first reading tonight, and council will conduct a second reading and its own public hearing on the ordinance at our May 6th meeting. And as mentioned, this is a first reading, so I make no motion at the time.
All right. Thank you. For the purpose of our Boy Scout who's in the audience, absent an emergency, we normally like to introduce ordinances and have 2 readings. That way, it's first introduced, and then people in the citizens, if they have questions or comments about it, have time to learn about it, and then they can come to our next regularly scheduled meeting and give their support or disapproval. And that way, we feel like it's an appropriate way that citizens can be informed about what its legislative elected officials are doing. I would contrast that process with what happens in the U.S. Congress, where they wait until an hour before they're going to adjourn, and they give the members 2,000 pages to read and say you have to vote yes or no. So I think our process, while it takes a little bit longer, is much more efficient and much more democratic. So there's some
Civics
talking
lesson.
points for you.
Civics lesson.
That concludes our legislation, and we do have a staff report regarding our Public Works Department, and City Manager Klops is going to give that report tonight. Welcome.
Yeah, Public Works Director.
Got a little bit of a scratchy throat tonight, so I hope I can get through this. And I'll ask for your indulgence here out of the chute, because I have a number of slides here, but there's just a lot going on in the Public Works Department, and I want to share it with you and with the community. It's hard to believe, but I'm in my 5th year now of directly overseeing the Public Works Department from my office as city manager. And as I reflect on these many months and the last 4 years of doing this, it's crystal clear that there'd be no way I could do this, I have the time to do this, if not for the quality of the people, not only down at the Public Works Department, the workers themselves, and the foreman and our water superintendent, but also Missy Seifert and Lori Stasel, and our department heads here, my direct staff at City Hall. Between those 10 or 12 people, they've all helped here or there and made it possible for me to directly oversee this department. So thank you to everyone for their help. I'm enjoying this, and I think we're getting a lot of good work done. So let me flip through some slides here, and I'll try to do this as quickly as possible. I'm going to start with some construction projects. We're finally coming out of the winter and have a lot of projects gearing up now throughout the community. I'm going to mention 4 projects that we recently put out to public bid. Our purchasing ordinance calls for us to use the sealed competitive bidding process for projects over $50,000 in value, although there are a couple exceptions that we can use under certain conditions. For the most part, for the larger construction projects, we do use the sealed competitive bidding process. So, first one I want to talk about is the concrete street repair. We Have a contractor lined up to start work here, and that's going to begin shortly. And as you can see on the slide, we're going to repair concrete panels on Ridgeway Road. This is a continuation of a project that started a couple years ago. We started at Harmon, worked our way south, and we're right around Park Road. And this year we're going to finish the rest of Ridgeway. So all the joints that are broken, we have asphalt kind of packed in there, we're going to cut out and put new concrete panels in. We're also going to do a few panels up Fair Forest while we're in that area, and we're going to do a number of repairs on Park Avenue just west of here between Harmon and Oakwood Avenue. So that'll probably be a 2 to 3 month process. It takes some time. We got to let the concrete cure, obviously, after each pour. But the contractor will maintain one lane of traffic throughout, so cars will be able to maneuver around the construction sites, and we'll send a postcard, our typical postcard construction notice to all the affected property owners in those neighborhoods. So in terms of the bidding, here in Ohio, in the upper Midwest, when you have a fairly limited construction season, April, May, till about October, November maybe, it's important to get out early with the bidding, because contractors line up their work, and if you wait too long, typically the better contractors have already won jobs, and they probably won't be bidding additional work for fear of not being able to work it all into the construction calendar. So we went out to bid early for the concrete street project. You can see there February 27 was the bid opening. We received 6 bids, which is a very good number. 3 or 4 bids is good. And you can see the low bid there, about $132,000, the high bid $195,000, and our estimate was right about in the middle there, which is where we always like to be. So we'll be contracting with TH Solutions at $132,000 to do all that concrete work. The asphalt resurfacing project was also put out to bid, and we have a number of streets lined up there. You can see those: Spirea, Greenmont, Peach Orchard Avenue, East Drive, Hathaway Road, Alpine Lane, Hilltop Avenue, Fairmont Avenue, and Hillview Avenue. So we have a fairly big project this year, and what we have done the last 6 or 8 years is a thin overlay program where we mill off a little over an inch. So it's not a whole lot of the surface, but we take that off and then we put the same amount back, and we have a beautiful new smooth street. And we're finding that while we do get some reflective cracking back, for the most part the streets are holding up, and we're getting 10 to 15 years of life. Years and years ago, 20 years ago plus, we used to take off more asphalt, twice that amount, maybe 2.5 times. But in terms of the budget, we would had about half as many streets that we could do with the same amount of money. And we're finding that this thin overlay is working much better for our city. So we went out to bid the day after the concrete bid. And for this particular work, there are only 2 contractors in this part of Ohio that bid the residential mill and overlay work, John R. Jurgensen and Barrett Paving. And if you look back the last 20, 30 years, one of the 2 pretty much gets the job every year, and they probably split it almost evenly. 4 years ago, Barrett had our residential project. 3 years ago, they did SHROYER Road. Last year, we had Jurgensen do our project, and Jurgensen, again, is the low bidder this year. And if you see the prices there, again, the interest estimate was right about in the middle, which, again, that's a place where we want to be. So we'll be signing a contract with Jurgensen for, if you look at that bottom bullet, $360,000. Of the total $400,000, about $40,000, just shy of that, will be paid to Jurgensen directly by VECTREN. And this is under an agreement that we came to with VECTREN last fall. You'll remember the major construction on East Drive. They put in a 16-inch diameter pipe. Certainly the folks that live in those 4 blocks remember this. Very big job, and our street there was about 5 years old at the time and was still in very good condition. Well, now it's got a major trench repair down the middle of it, and VECTREN, to their credit, agreed to pay the cost for a complete mill and overlay curb to curb. So when that is done, that street will be completely renewed.
Will that run from all the way from Schroyer to
Schroyer to Schaefer.
To Schaefer.
The entire length of that.
of East Drive?
Yep,
Yep.
that's
Thank you.
correct. And a little kudo here. 4 years ago, we received a Quality Paving Award from the Flexible Pavements of Ohio organization. That's a trade organization representing the asphalt pavers in Ohio. And we learned just recently that we received a second award. This was for repaving of Acorn Drive and Hadley Avenue last summer. And Jurgensen did the work, and you know, the credit primarily, our name is on there, but I think goes to Jurgensen for the quality work, but also to Dave Shuey, our streets foreman. Dave saw to it that we fixed curb, catch basins, adjusted some manholes as needed, and really prepped the street in advance of Jurgensen arriving. And then Tom Long, our engineering technician, directly oversaw the paving operation, the milling, and the overlay work. So real happy to get this second award. And that plaque you see there is hanging right outside our council chamber here on the wall, next to the one we received in 2014. We also have put out to bid our sidewalk curb and apron program, and this is our annual project. You know, we split the community up into 4 sections, and each year we tackle one section, inspect all the sidewalk, curb, driveway aprons, and I can certainly make a case that we have the finest sidewalks in terms of the quality and structural integrity of any community around here, and it's because of the commitment to this program and the fact that you approve a budget every year that includes money for this. And this year we have $175,000 in the budget, and we are, as you can see on the slide there, tackling the area from Far Hills 4, Schroyer Road, Acorn, and to Patterson, that large area.
Are you still putting red X's on people's sidewalks?
They're orange,
They're
Your Honor,
orange,
but yes,
okay.
we are.
Has that already started?
That's already done.
Oh.
We have marked all the sidewalk, and I'm glad you brought that up. The city pays for the curb and the driveway aprons, and we continue to assess for the sidewalk on a property frontage. If you happen to live on a corner property, which you do, Your Honor, we only assess for your frontage, not your side yard sidewalk, and that's consistent throughout the community.
So I guess I consider myself a winner for not having any X's on my
That if
property.
you have no orange X, then you're a winner. Okay. Yes. Well, Mr. Stevens is chuckling because he was not so lucky.
I guess 3 X's make me the loser tonight. Yes.
Well, I've been putting so
that's a
many
strikeout,
X's on my bracket sheets, I'm happy, I'm out of X's.
The notices to affected property owners were delivered this past weekend, and there's a 45-day period now where those who have an orange X on their frontage sidewalk, why they can fix that themselves, or if they do nothing, then our program will swing around and take care of it, and then we'll send an invoice for that work. The bid was just a couple weeks ago, and this too was a successful bid. We had 4 bidders, and the low bid was $186, high bid $231, and the estimate was $199. So a little bit above the $175 budget, but we have money in the street budget within the same 309 capital improvement fund that we can use to complete this work. Every year it's an estimate, you know, at budgeting time as to how much sidewalk, curb, and apron we'll find. So being about 10,000 off, I think, is historically pretty close. And the successful bidder was Archon Builders, and we used them last year. They were lowest and best bidder last year and did a fantastic job, so we're happy to work with them again. It's leaf mulch time once again, so a week after this coming Saturday will be the first of 5 Saturdays when we'll have leaf mulch deliveries available from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And those are require residents to call the Public Works Yard and order the mulch. And for $100 you can get 3 cubic yards. For $150 you can get 6 cubic yards. And if you've ever shoveled even 1 cubic yard of mulch in wheelbarrows, you know that's a lot. So 3 is a big load, 6 is a very large load, and these prices are well below what one would pay on the private market. And importantly, This leaf mulch basically is the leaves that we picked up last fall, and now they've been ground up and processed for 2 or 3 months, and they're the nice leaf mulch that we'll deliver. Also, on those same 5 Saturdays that you see up there between April 13 and May 11, residents that are willing to haul the mulch themselves, they can go to the Public Works yard, again, between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. and get free mulch. So that's a neat program. Been in place for over 20 years, and we have quite a few residents that appreciate it. The fourth bid I want to talk about is the yard waste removal. We just took bids on this 2.5 weeks ago, and this year we had been in a pattern of bidding this every year, but this year we put together a packet for a 3-year contract, and we received 4 bids, which was very good. And you can see there the prices. So that $34,500, $36,500, and $38,500, that's the direct expense that we will incur based on an estimated volume. So that will vary, depending on the amount of leaves and other yard debris. But it's basically to pay a contractor to come to our Public Works yard and remove the leaves. The leaves, in the fall, that 10-week period that we pile up, they'll just pick them up in large semi-trucks and take them away. And as I mentioned earlier, grind them up and process the mulch for the next spring. But also it's for the brush and branch material throughout the year. And nowadays, the low bidders here, the successful bidders, they bring in a large tub grinder. Instead of hauling that brush loose, they bring a large machine in, they grind all that brush and even some pretty big sized logs and tree stumps into a wood chip product, and then that's loaded into semi trucks and taken away. So from time to time when I talk about our refuse rates, I mentioned that 20 to 25% of the $30 a month that we now pays for the handling, the collection and removal of yard debris. Here's the direct cost to the outside contractor. The other cost that's not up here is all the in-house labor, the front end loader, the dump trucks that we use to pick up the debris at the street and at the curb. So that all together, you can see how these numbers get fairly large and why that accounts for about 20 to 25% of our total refuse bill. The do-it-yourself drop-off continues to be very, very popular. We started this 6 or 8 years ago at the Public Works yard, the first Saturday of each month, and you can see the numbers there. We had 547 visits in 2017 and 728 in 2018. So a lot of citizens are using that, and we typically have one Public Works employee there on that Saturday morning to assist residents with whatever material they bring down for dumping. So we'll continue that program throughout the year. The special pickups, this is the alternative to self-dumping. We still offer a program where residents can call the Public Works yard and get 2 free special pickups a year. So if you have a couch or other type of large furniture that you want to get rid of, one phone call to the Public Works Center, we'll get it on the schedule and we'll pick it up and dispose of it. We've talked about recycling a bit in the past, recent past, and you all know about the tight recycling market now, nationally and frankly internationally, and the importance of putting the right recyclable material in the bin, and in other words, not putting non-recyclable products in that commingled bin. As most of our residents know, probably most all of them, we have these dual bed scooters where we put the regular trash in one side, we put the commingled glass, plastic, cardboard, newspaper products in the other side, and then that scooter marries up to the refuse packer that has 2 different compartments, and we take the landfill trash to the county, and then it goes to a landfill. The recyclables we take to Rumpke, and we're paying now $20 a ton to Rumpke to take those commingled recyclables, but we pay $38.25 to the county per ton to take the regular landfill waste. So it's cheaper for us to recycle as much as we can. But as I say, it's increasingly important to only put recyclable items in that commingled can. And the guidance now, not countywide and beyond, is when in doubt, throw it in the regular trash. Guidance used to be, if in doubt, throw it in the recycle and it'll get sorted out. But the recycling stream really needs to become cleaner now for the whole market to work, again, nationally and beyond. And importantly, there on the bottom, in that commingled can, the products need to be thrown in there loosely, not put into plastic bags. We recently updated our refuse handbook and made one important, not a change, but a clarification in the handbook. And this is in response to a new kind of phenomenon here. We've seen a few property owners start to buy smaller roll waste containers. And as you know, all the properties in Oakwood that live on alleys, the city provides them a 96-gallon roll waste container, and we have a mechanical lift arm on the packer that picks that up and dumps it. Here, just recently, you've been able to buy smaller 35-gallon roll waste cans, so they're basically that toter, but a smaller size. But the problem is, they too are made for a mechanical dumping system, and we don't do that. We pick up the cans and we dump them in the scooter and then into the packer. So with the non-detachable lids on those small roll waste cans and the fact that there are no handles, it makes it difficult for our public works employees in the refuse department to physically empty the cans. So Kenneth Perkins, our refuse foreman, has been talking to the property owners that have those cans and explaining to it, and he's received a good response on that. The Oakwood Rotary Club continues the quarterly hazardous waste pickup program. This started about 10 years ago and has been enormously successful. I know 3 of you are Oakwood Rotarians, and we have a wonderful club. And my buddy, Dr. Tom Hardy, and I typically work on this project. 4 times a year we'll meet on a Saturday morning. You can see the dates there for the remaining 3 events this year. And we obtain a list, and it varies from 20 to maybe 40 Oakwood properties. And Tom and I, and then a number of other Rotarians, simply divide up the list and go around town and pick up paints, pesticides, oils, batteries, transmission fluid, all those sorts of things. And then we, in our own vehicle pickup trucks, and then we take it down to the county where there's a private vendor there who processes the material as appropriate. And as I say, it's an excellent program. Every quarter that Tom and I do this, we fill the bed of his old, we call it the truck Big Red. It's an old Ford pickup truck with a big full-size bed, and we fill the entire bed, at least 1 layer full of, you name it, all this kind of hazardous material, sometimes 2 and 3 high, in just the 8 or 10 properties that we might get assigned. So it's an awful lot of old hazardous waste that every quarter we're pulling out of Oakwood. And over a long period of time, I mean, it really is cleaning up our community, so it's a wonderful program. It is free of charge. There's a phone number there, 296-5155. If folks call that, you'll get a recording, and all you need to do is leave your address, name, a phone number, and a brief description on what kind of materials you have, how many cans, and that sort of thing. And then our Public Works Secretary, Mrs. Seifer, puts that together in a spreadsheet and gives it to the Rotarians on the morning of the pickup. On next Monday, we'll start our annual fire hydrant flushing program, and we do this annually. And basically, we visit every fire hydrant in town. We open it up and flush it and blow water out. And there are 2 primary reasons for it. One, to test the fire hydrant. Obviously, we want to make sure that every fire hydrant is functional if the need arises to use it for an actual fire. And then secondly, it allows us to flush out the piping system. And if you ever follow around our employee that does this, you'll see when you first open the hydrant, the initial gush of water that comes out typically is a little bit copper colored. It's just from the inside little bit of corrosion from the inside of the cast iron pipes that run all around Oakwood. And typically, in short, a matter of moments, that water clears up, and then we flush that particular area, and then shut the hydrant and go to the next one. And we just systematically go all the way through town. And typically, we'll find not many, 1 or 2 or 3 hydrants that need some maintenance when we do this each year. So it's a good way to keep up with that program. Also in the water area, we from time to time you hear about water main breaks in the region. You read about them in the paper, or hear about on the radio. Fortunately, we don't have very many here in Oakwood, but we do have them from time to time, and we have a wonderful crew of workers that know how to respond to those and make the repairs. We also replace water service lines every year, a number of them throughout town, and typically we do those when there's a water leak on the line from the main out in the street or in the easement in the backyard to the property. We have a big project at the Springhouse Water Plant, $120,000 in the budget this year for it, and we have pricing for it, and we'll spend right about that amount. This plant was put into operation in 1992, right about the time that I started here with the city, and the primary filters, which if they were set up in a row here, would probably extend from one side of the room to the other, very large water softening filters, have basically operated without any major maintenance since the plant was put online. So it's been a very well designed and operated plant, but we'll be opening up the filters and completely emptying them, sandblasting, recoating the inside, and repacking the filter bed, and hope to get another 30 years out of those. So that's a big project, and that will happen here in the next few weeks. Strategically planned that in the winter time when our water usage is down, and when we can supply all the water we need from the other plant. And this particular project was done at the other plant 2 years ago, and that plant was put online in 1989. So when this is completed here in a month or 6 weeks, both of the water softening plants will be completely renewed. We have 2 water reports that will soon be available on our website. One is annual production report that we prepare in-house. It's not required, but we put it together. It's 13, 15 pages, a good summary of the previous year, the well pumping, the amount of water treated at the different plants and from the extracted from the different wells, the schedule of the monthly maintenance that took place throughout the production facilities, and some budget information. So it's a good overview of the previous year. And then the second one is a U.S. and Ohio, Ohio EPA requirement, and that's the Consumer Confidence Report. And that is a bit of a shorter report, but it focuses more on water treatment and water quality issues. So both of those will be available soon and will be posted on our website. I want to comment on Shroyer Road briefly. This has been, from where we sit here at the city, an enormously successful project. Pretty much all the reaction and public comment we've received has been positive. Hard to believe we've now been through our second winter, but if you look at the pavement, it's holding up very nicely, very, very few cracks in it. You'll remember we did extensive base repair. There's a concrete base under that roadway back when we did the project in the summer of 2017, and that will pay dividends as the years go on. But importantly here, I want to share these numbers. Because of the new design and what we call the road diet, the speeds have dropped dramatically here. The average or mean speed in the 4 different places we measured dropped between 4 and 10 miles an hour, and the 85th percentile speed dropped between 6 and 11. And these were based on measurements taken before the project in February of 2016, and then in February of 2018, a few months after the project was completed. So a very dramatic drop in the speeds, and that happened organically. That wasn't because we had police officers out there. It happened because the new design just naturally slowed folks down. And of course, impact of that is a very significant drop in accidents. I mean, 35% is a big number. Typically in transportation engineering, you like to look at a 3-year period for accident data, so we're going to wait another couple years, but we'll be doing a formal report a couple years from now on the impact of this project. And the engineer that helped us with CMT, Scott Knable, he and I have talked about writing a paper on this, for publication in at least a statewide magazine, maybe beyond, because this is a very good example of a small scale, 1.1 mile length of essentially a residential type corridor, where this road diet, based on all the evidence so far, has been enormously successful. So real happy with that. And the bottom bullet there, you can see the number of speeding tickets we've written has dropped very dramatically, and that's because it's hard to go more than 35 on that street. A couple more things to comment on. We recently replaced a section of guardrail. This is on Far Hills Avenue, just north of Patterson. This was struck by a vehicle, and 9 times out of 10 when this guardrail or the blue safety railing that we have out there is struck by a vehicle, we know the vehicle stays there. It's not a hit and run, and we get insurance information. And the cost of fixing this guardrail or the blue railing out there, why that's paid by the insurance company, for the person who hit the railing. So we pay the cost up front, and then we get reimbursed. So wanted to point that out. This was about $2,500, so not a huge amount of money, but something that an insurance company covered. And as I say here, the railing, which unfortunately gets hit from time to time, we fix it in-house. We stock all these different sections of railing. But again, typically we get reimbursed for the cost of the material and the labor that we have into it. One other guardrail item to point out. This is on Oakwood Avenue, just north of Thornhill. And this is an area where this time last year, this area I'm highlighting here was full of growth. Typically, it was primarily honeysuckle, but there's a whole enormous stand of honeysuckle there, and it essentially hid the drop-off that exists there. And the property owner that, you can't see the home, it's off the slide here, that took the honeysuckle down, when they were done, another neighbor said, there's a pretty significant drop-off here, and you ought to consider putting a guardrail in. So it's an example of what our Public Works Department can do. We put this timber railing in here, and it matches what we have on Ridgeway Road and on Forer Road. So it was a neat little project, took just a few days to put in, and that'll be there, that's meant to last, that'll be there 50 years and offers good protection. On the north end of town, folks will start seeing these little placards stuck onto stormwater inlets, and this is what they look like. And they're basically a reminder, should be a reminder to citizens that these inlets are direct paths to storm sewers, which are direct paths to rivers and streams. And we should never be dumping anything into those other than clean rainwater. So this is a neat project. It's not costing us any money. There's a group from the University of Dayton that obtained grant money to buy the placards, and students are going around literally gluing them onto all the catch basins. So this started a few months ago, and I think it's going to take a little bit of time based on their availability, but eventually those placards will be on every catch basin inlet in Oakwood. And again, no cost to us. Real quickly, almost done here. VECTREN has 2 projects planned, made through July or August. And this is a continuation of their rebuilding of the gas infrastructure. They're 3 or 4 years away from completing the project. So by 2022 or 2023, all of the underground natural gas infrastructure will be completely rebuilt in Oakwood. So it's a very significant project, and the folks in the neighborhoods where the work takes place will get direct notification from VECTREN. The project entails putting new plastic pipe in for the main distribution and then plastic lines to each property, and they move the meters to the outside. So it takes coordination with every property owner. The north area is up where I live here, between SCHANTZ and Volusia, Oakwood Avenue over to Acacia. And then the south area is between Corona and Hadley, between Far Hills and Schroyer. And details about this and a couple of other things I've talked about are in the Oakwood Scene newsletter, which everybody in Oakwood will be receiving this week in the mail. And the last project, this is a City of Kettering project, but it's not far from our border, our corporation line on West Schanz Avenue. In fact, last evening I drove down that street and there's barrels all over the place. So the work is getting ready to start, but again, it's a City of Kettering project. We do have a link on our website that would take you to the Kettering website where you can keep up with road closures and how this project unfolds. But as the slide says, it's a 7 to 8 month project and is a complete rebuilding of that bridge that goes over Dixie. And I'll conclude by just mentioning the 5 people, 6 down at Public Works that really helped me to do what I do here in overseeing this department. Ken Perkins, been with the city for I think 29 years now. So he's the senior fellow here in the department. Takes care of all our refuse operations. Gary Dersch runs our water production, the water plants, the wells and all that. Tom Long does he's our engineering technician, oversees a lot of our bigger construction projects. Dave Shuey works very closely with Tom. While Tom oversees the asphalt mill and overlay project, Dave oversees all the concrete work. So the concrete street I talked about earlier and the sidewalk curb and apron project Dave takes care of, as well as all the pothole repairing, catch basin repairs, manhole repairs and adjusting. That's all Dave's work. Chris Harold oversees the sanitary sewer and water line work and does a great job for us. And Missy is the glue down there. 9 times out of 10, if residents call the Public Works Department, 298-0777, Missy will answer the phone with a friendly voice and will direct the folks where they need to go to deal with whatever issue they have. So a bit long, but that's my update from the Public Works Department. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for?
Very thorough.
It sounds like we got a lot of neat things going on in Oakwood this summer.
Okay, my last thank you is to Lori, because as I said earlier, a whole bunch of people helped me do this. Well, last Friday midday, I thought, I really need to I'd like to have a PowerPoint for Monday, so I looked at Lori, I said, do you mind? So a big thank you to Lori for throwing this PowerPoint together very quickly, so.
No dancing construction barrels, though.
Right, no.
Norm, how many people take advantage of the special pickups?
Ms. Hilton, I don't have that number on the top of my head, but it's in the annual report. And that report was just delivered in the last week or so to every property owner. So that statistic is in there.
Okay.
But it's several hundred. So it's a pretty big number.
Any other questions? All right. Well, we'll let you come back to behind the dais here so you can give your city manager report, which I'm assuming will not be as long as your Public Works report.
We can only hope.
But we want the Boy Scout to know everything that's going on in Oakwood, don't we?
So, Your Honor, I mentioned the annual report, and here it is. I know you've seen it, and our beautiful Schaefer Park tennis facilities on the front cover, and 32 pages of detailed information about all the departments here. And again, Lori had a big hand in putting this together. So I would encourage all residents to flip through this and get better acquainted with what we do here at the city. And I mentioned the Ridgeway Road Bridge project, or the SCHANTZ project. Kettering is also rebuilding the Ridgeway Road Bridge right on the south where Oakwood runs into Kettering. And there's an information meeting this Thursday, April 4th, at Kettering High School from 6 to 7:30 p.m. And a number of Oakwood residents received a direct mailing about that, folks that live in the kind of southwest part of Oakwood, but it's an open house meeting or event open to anyone, and I'll plan to attend it. So I wanted to mention that.
That construction is not scheduled anytime soon.
That's scheduled for next year.
2020?
I believe.
All right.
2020. And my last comment, it has to do with bill paying. And there's information on our website about this, but we have just rolled out a new way of paying your water and other utility bills. You can also pay taxes through this. It's called a web portal, and I won't go into details now, but there is information on the website about how to register for that, and it's for those folks that are into technology and all that. It's a real convenient way to pay utility bills and other bills here at the city remotely, and you can set up automatic sort of payments on a monthly basis, or you can just from your smart device, you can, once you have an account set up, you can log in and see that you got a bill coming up due. You may be traveling somewhere, you can just pay it right there from your phone and not have to worry about it. So that system is up and running now. We've, over the last 3 or 4 weeks, have had a wonderful response to it. Quite a large number of people appreciate it.
Good.
So that's all I have.
Any questions for our city manager? All right, now we have time for council comments. Councilmember Epley.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no comments tonight.
Councilmember Hilton.
Your Honor, I have no comments.
Councilmember Stevens.
Just one quick comment. I would like to recognize our Clerk of Council, Lori Stasel. I want to thank her for all her hard work. I know she did a lot of work on the annual report, but I'm more focusing on what she does for us, with us. Her communication is very detailed. She's pleasant to work with, and she's our liaison, between our city manager, and she's just, there's never an issue. She does a great job, and I just want to thank her for all her hard work.
Great. Vice Mayor Byington.
No comments this evening.
Thank you. Not even about the Red Raiders? Not even about Texas
Hey,
Tech?
when we win the national championship, I'll talk about it next.
That's more like, he is a graduate of Texas Tech, so hence
Final
the-
Four, baby.
Final Four, there you go. My only comment is in 2 weeks, it's tax day. Your city Oakwood taxes due on April 15th. We offer an extension of time to file, but we do not offer an extension of time to pay. So with that, our meeting is adjourned. Our next regular session will be on Monday, May 6, 2019.